I've been watching a lot of older movies. Older, not as in old, but older as in movies that I remember from my youth. Movies from the '80s and '90s, and some of them are movies I haven't seen. Some of them are movies I haven't seen since the night that I saw it in in this case in 1987. And and it's partly because, as I've said before, there's a different level of consciousness about what goes on in Hollywood, in the entertainment industry today. There's more of an awareness of the. I mean, I think there was always people were always aware that there were sleazy doings in Hollywood, but we didn't know. We didn't know the half of it. We didn't know the eighth of it. We didn't know the 20th of it. And the kind of things that have been that has seeped more and more into the public consciousness, particularly with regard to pedogate, is something that people just didn't think that way when they watched movies back in the '70s, '80s, and '90s. It just didn't happen. And so, as a consequence, you could have a movie come out in, I believe it was 1987, a movie called Big. This was one of Tom Hanks's earliest. Uh, well, it's one of his early hits. It's one of the many that solidified him as a major box office draw, as a major leading man. Um, as someone who had charm and wit and sort of a comic actor, but who also had could also pull off poignancy and so forth and so on. Everybody was charmed by Tom Hanks. He was the boy next door. Nobody thought anything untoward about Tom Hanks in 1987. Um, Nobody. When I say nobody, I don't mean no. I don't mean literally nobody. I mean, uh, it would be very hard to find anybody who thought that there was anything quote unquote creepy at all about Hanks. So big though, big. Uh, what a movie! Now, I mean, as I say, well, there's a lot to unpack here. Um, yeah, and there is. I hate to put it that way because I hate that expression, but it's so wild watching it uh, from just less than 30 hours away from 2026, from the beginning of 2026, watching Big again with this consciousness of of the goings on in the biz that we just simply didn't have any. People just didn't know about when this movie came out in 1987. The premise of Big: uh, you've got this kid, an ordinary 12-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid. I think he's 12 and he turns 13 over the course of the movie. He's got a buddy who's his own age, and they hang out together. They're the best of friends, and for some reason, this is like another one of my fault. Well, this is a faulty memory that I had. I was sure that when Tom Hanks was a kid, it was Fred Savage, from the Wonder Years. That was not the case. I don't know who this young actor was who played this kid in Big, the kid who became Tom Hanks. Um, I didn't recognize him. I I didn't. Hopefully he got out. Hopefully he got out and is living a normal life. My heart just kind of sinks whenever I see any kid in any movie, just because, well, I've gone over it before. I've talked about this before. Just it's it's a cesspit. It is a raging cesspit, and it's no place for kids, no place for children. Anyhow, let's put all of that aside for a second and just talk about the premise of the movie. What is Big about? Big is a story about this boy who's growing up in, I guess maybe it's Long Island or some surrounding more suburban area, very near to New York City in the 80s. And he leads a pretty idyllic life for the most part, but he uh he's frustrated. He gets frustrated that he's not bigger than he is. That he's not taller than he is. He wants to be bigger, taller. He wants to be grown up. He has a humiliating experience where he's trying to impress a girl from school, and it turns out that she's there with some other guy who's a couple years older than him, who's her real date, but he just didn't see her. And then they don't let him get on a ride uh, because he's not tall enough. It's like one of those loop de loop rides that twists you, up and down and all around. And he's too short to get on the ride, and so he's embarrassed in front of everybody, and so he just kind of wanders away in a sulk. And there's this fortune telling machine. Um, this this is, I believe it's Coney Island or someplace like it. Someplace where there's an amusement park or a bunch of, maybe it's just like a bunch of carnival rides. Anyway, like that just set up shop and then move on to the next location. But he sees uh, this teller machine called Zoltar, and Zoltar is so weird. And again, in 1987, you just didn't think about it at all. It was just like oh well, he has this fantasy of getting big, and this is the means by which it happens, and there's no real significance to the machine. Don't think about it. Don't overanalyze it. It's just this magical machine that grants his wish to become big. The thing is, the name of the thing is Zoltar. Now, uh, Zoltar, I looked it up. I asked, what does Zoltar mean? Zoltar meaning, I just did a little bit of internet search engine. Uh, I don't even know if I would call it research. Just sort of scrolled around, and Zoltar uh, means life. in Greek. In Greek. Many years later, Tom Hanks, with a cloud of suspicion hanging over him from many, from many, not from all. There's still a lot of people who just sort of see him as the wholesome leading man that they saw him as in the 80s and the 90s, but now there's a cloud of suspicion about this guy. He goes he emigrated to Greece recently. There was a headline, and I swear this was a headline, which read, "Tom Hanks emigrates to Greece, but pedophilia had nothing to do with it." That was the actual headline. You may not be able to find it today. They probably changed it, uh, but I remember it plain as day. Um, you know, Clearly the headline writers were trying to dispel this myth, but it was the perfect essence of the Streisand effect. You know, People who read that headline said, "Wait a minute, what?" Those who hadn't even heard the rumors um, saw that headline and said, "Why? Why would pedophilia have something to do with it? What are you talking about?" Uh, but it just so happens that Zoltar means life in Greek. In Greek, so the kid makes a wish, and the wish is to be big. And the guys, the I don't know, it's there. There's like a pirate looking, scary, sort of evil, demonic pirate looking thing, and his eyes flash red. Um, and it's freaky. It's pretty freaky. And then the it spits out a ticket, and the ticket says your wish has been granted. And so he goes home that night, wakes up the next morning, and he's Tom Hanks. He's 30, around 30 years old, fully grown man, and he tries to tell his mom that that it's him. His mom doesn't believe him. His mom thinks he's an intruder and thinks that he's taken away his son. Say, taken away her son. Apparently, she's a single mom. Although there are early scenes where it looks like he has a father there too. I don't know if that was just a loop that they never closed, or what the deal was there. But in an early scene, they're walking around, and you get the impression it's his mother and father. Uh, but the father just sort of drops out after the father, the guy who's supposed to be the father, just sort of drops out after these early scenes, and so he becomes a missing child. There's actually a moment where we see his face and name on a milk carton, which is something they did back then in the 80s. If you were a missing child, they put your face up along with your name on the side of a milk carton. It was a weird campaign. I've heard things about it. I've heard people making esoteric uh, yeah, kind of formulations, or coming up with these strange ideas about why on milk. Why what's the point of all this? Is this part of the this whole scheme of that they're taking all the kids, uh, and then just like putting them on the milk carton is a way of, I don't know, letting their potential buyers know that these kids are available or something. I don't know, something like that. Something kind of like what was alleged to have happened with Wayfair a few years ago, although the Wayfair thing was a lot stranger. Anyway, I know I'm meandering a bit here. It's what I do. It's what I do in these videos often. Um, but anyway, so he goes off to the city, uh, gets it somehow lands a job at a toy company, um, and because of his childlike innocence and just he sees toys as things to play with and have fun with, and not in some uh, not according to some business model or something like that. He thinks from the point of view of a child because he is a child, except he's in a grown man's body, and then so the boss of this company, this older man who's the boss of the company, really takes to him and likes his perspective, likes his point of view, and promotes him to some higher position within the company. Meantime, his friend is still following, still coming, to visit him in his office, and they're going around the city, hanging out together, doing stuff, just like two friends would be doing, two 12 or 13-year-old boys would be doing. um, it's weird though, like to have it's weird on so many levels. Like the whole age regression thing, uh, it has it hits different right now. In the when you watched it in 1987, you just sort of thought, oh, he's just playing a little boy. It's like Tom Hanks, the actor, is behaving like a little boy would act, like a 12-year-old would act in this kind of situation. He's kind of a little bashful, or he gets distracted by things, or he doesn't understand what's being said, or he the input that he has to a particular discussion seems like seems insolent, but he's really just trying to make a point in an innocent sort of way. Like when his one of his fellow workers is giving a presentation about a toy, and then he raises his hand and says, "I don't get it," and the other guy thinks that he's trying to humiliate him, trying to put him down, uh, trying to make him look stupid. But really, what he's saying is, I don't get this toy. It doesn't what I don't want to make it different, in a way that's more fun. Again, just thinking more like a kid would think. Anyhow, so there's scenes of him hanging out together with this other boy, uh, who's actually his friend. But then, more weirdly, more uncomfortably, uh, this 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 sharkish woman executive, uh, who's sleeping her way to the top, and you could portray women doing this in the 80s, and not get castigated for it. And even with the female director, Penny Marshall, Laverne, as the director, and she has um, this character played by Elizabeth Perkins, who's just this, you know, like trying to latch herself onto whoever's hot shit right now, so she can move up through the ranks, and because it's mostly men who are working there, uh, and she gets it in her mind to to you know to put the moves on Tom Hanks. Not, of course, not realizing that he's actually a 12-year-old boy, um, because he's a fully grown man, even though he acts uh, really, really strange and really uh, not at all like an adult. Um, she starts coming on to him, and and then they they eventually, because Hanks's character is already, he's in puberty, so he knows about girls, and he's into that sort of thing, and is curious, and you know he, he's as I said, he's pubescent, so they end up sleeping together. They end up uh, having a what could be called an affair, although he basically doesn't really know what he's doing. Uh, and she starts to fall in love with him because he's different from the other men that she's just lashed herself onto to try to claw her way to the top. And we start seeing a softer, more feminine side to her. She doesn't go around, smoking a cigarette and talking tough anymore. She's sort of, um, you know, we see something more vulnerable come out in her. Um, and as I said, I think even in 1987, I was kind of thinking. I remember seeing this movie and kind of thinking, I don't know if I'm comfortable with this. Uh, I, you know, I just don't know if I'm comfortable with this. But today, it's like wow, like somebody. I was having a discussion with somebody about this just recently, and it's like in some ways, how did he put it? He had a brilliant way of putting it. It was, like a disguised pedophile fantasy, right? If you're somebody who who likes uh, little boys or young boys, but uh, inappropriately likes them. I mean, but you want to see a movie where, or of course, you can't. It would be forbidden for you to for you to see an actual 12 or 13-year-old with a grown woman. But what about if it's a grown man in the bot? What if it's a boy in the body of a grown man uh, with a grown woman? And that's what happens here in this movie. Now, in the end, she finds out the truth. He tells her who he really is and that he wants to go home. He misses being a kid. He misses his mom. And that's something else that's kind of strange about all this is like he disappears for this amount of time, and it's like so the specter of missing kids is brought to bear. It's brought into play, and that was going on at the time. People were like the whole "it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are?" That was the thing back then. That was the thing people said. So people were aware of teenage runaways, kids being abducted, and there was a lot of fear, maybe bordering in some cases on paranoia about kids, because this was the time. I mean, there were it was an era it was the era of the latchkey child. It was an era where, and with it was an era of broken families, divorce and remarriage, and single parenthood. Um, so there was a lot more. Who's watching the kids? What's going on with the kids? What are the kids really up to? And who might be out there, you know, plotting nefarious things? Now, at the time, it wasn't really. There was no connection in the minds of the public. Uh, there was no equivalent to QAnon or whatever you want to call it. There was no real awareness of child abuse on an institutional level. But there was a lot of fear, of like, some pervert out there who's going to hurt your kid. Uh, but the movie just glosses over that whole aspect of what happens to this boy. He just disappears. He calls and tells his mom, look, your kid's okay. He'll be home soon. Blah blah blah. But of course, there's no way for the mother to know whether, like, who is this who's holding it. She can't believe that this man with a grown man's voice is actually her son. Um, and he can't convince her of that. So he just tells her, your son's fine and he's doing well, and he'll be home soon, and his friend who lives next door, at one point has one of those things that you only see in movies, really, where people are living next door and they open their window, like that Taylor Swift video where she opens her window and talks to the guy that she's interested in, or holds up a sign for him, and he holds up a sign, back, communicating back to her. It seems like in the movies this happens a lot. It's like people talk from window to window. I've never had a window to window conversation that I can think of with anyone in my life. But anyway, so the kid next door says he'll be back soon. Um, uh, because he's been keeping tabs on him this whole time, and they sort of have had a falling out because Tom Hanks's character has gotten more into play into being an adult and playing the role of an adult and having this adult job and having a girlfriend and all of that, and so he sort of has ignored his friend for a little bit, but then his friend reminds him, look, you're you're just a kid like me, and I'm 3 months older than you, asshole. That's actually a pretty funny line. Uh, so yeah, so it ends with Elizabeth Perkins' character finding out what the deal is, and this creepy demonic machine, Zoltar, uh, this this demon pirate with red eyes that light up, um, again granting his wish, this time to be little again. So it's like this brings in all the stuff with Zoltar, all the stuff with uh, making a wish, uh, meeting this mystical character who has the power to grant wishes, who has magic properties. It seems that could be read esoterically in some way. that would not people would just not think about today. People would not it would not cross our minds today. Uh, so she ends up driving him home, and then when he walks away from her, his he's wearing a grown man's clothes, but then he becomes a boy again and turns to face her one more time, and his clothes are too big for him. And she just looks at him wistfully. She's, she doesn't she doesn't think to herself, "Holy shit! I just I just had sex with a 12-year-old, 13-year-old." Um, and again, we're not. It's just supposed to be a sweet, bittersweet kind of moment. Uh, it's a little schmaltzy. There's a little bit too there's too much of the maudlin sort of soundtrack music going on, but it really is a very strange story, an uncomfortable story to watch from today's perspective. Uh, all the stuff about age regression, um, Tom Hanks hanging out with a kid, Tom Hanks actually being a kid, uh, and sleeping with a grown woman. There are some resonances there. Plus the whole weird machine uh, that that gives you your wish, but you have to pay a price that you didn't know. I mean, it's just it's like making a bargain with a demon or something like that. I don't know. So those are my thoughts on Big from the perspective of all these many years later, when our perspective on things has changed so significantly. And those are my thoughts.